Greetings, mathematicians, and welcome to our final lesson in comparing bits and pieces. Today we're going to be converting fractions to decimals to percents and backwards to percents to decimals and to fractions. Last class we talked already about converting fractions to decimals. So we're going to talk today about decimals to percents. Before we do that, let's go over some key vocabulary and review some important concepts that are definitely going to be helpful when converting these three things. Go ahead and copy down this number here and leave some spaces in between the numbers. Just make it nice and big, easy to read. And this thing that I'm going to remind you of is this thing called place value. And as you might know, we ask you to round to the nearest tenth, round to the nearest hundredth, and do all of that stuff. And so I think it's important to quickly review some of the names of our place values. So to the left of the decimal, we know that the first place is the ones place value. Right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, we call that the ones place value. If we continue to the left, this 2 is in the tens place. And I could continue going on and on and on, doing hundreds, thousands, 10,000s, and so on and so forth. But I want to focus a little bit more going the opposite direction, going to the right, behind the decimal. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm looking at this 1, and this one behind the decimal, we call this the tenths place. The tenths place with a THS at the end. So if I were to read, pretend these numbers aren't here, if I were to read this decimal, 0.1, formally I would read it as 1/10. Okay, so I read the number that's there, and then I say the place value. So this is 1/10. This 2 is in the hundredths place. Hundredths place. So if my decimal reads as 0.12, I read the number behind the decimal, this is 12, and then whatever place value the last number is in, that's the place value I give it. So this decimal I read as 12 hundredths. Hope it's all coming back to you. All right, and let's keep moving forward. This 3, this is the thousandths place. Whoops. The 4 is in the 10,000ths. It's actually really hard to write vertically. 10,000ths, and then this 5 here is in the, oh my goodness, it's going to take a while, 100,000ths. Woohoo! There we go, I did it. All right, so that was a quick review of the place values, and these are going to, like I said, these are going to become very helpful as we go through the lesson today. All right, one more vocabulary word that I have for you, or I guess this is the first vocabulary word. We reviewed the concept of place value, and now we have the vocabulary word of percent. The word percent literally translates to parts per 100. Okay, so essentially what a percentage tells you, it's a ratio that is out of 100. right? So you guys have heard percentages, 25%, that's 25 out of 100. I'm going to put quotations around out of 100 because that's kind of the phrase that we say. If I said 36%, that's a 36 out of 100. One more example, 52% is 52 out of 100. Okay, so percent is it's a ratio, it's a fraction out of 100. So keep that in mind. Actually, let's write that down. We're going to make a note to ourselves. Can be written as a fraction out of 100. Or in other words, our denominator will be 100. Let's take a look at some examples. Like I said in our last class, we talked about converting fractions to decimals. And so today we're going to continue that process, and now we're going to change these decimals into percentages. So in order to change a decimal to a percent, we are going to multiply the decimal by 100. You'll notice that if you do a bunch of these problems over and over, this is what's going to happen every time is we're going to move the decimal point, or move the decimal 2 places to the right. Okay, so with these problems, kiddos, you can use calculators here. I just expect you to write out whatever decimal we're talking about times 100. Okay, so example number 1. Let's go with the decimal 0.36 or 36 hundredths. In order to change this into a percentage, I'm going to multiply the decimal by 100. And if you type this into your calculator, you'll notice that we are taking, I'll work in pink here, we're taking the decimal point and we're moving it 2 places to the right. So our answer is 36%. Let's take a look at another example. Looking at the decimal 0.07 or 7 hundredths, it's going to be the same process. We just multiply the decimal by 100. You can check this on your calculator, but what's happening is I move the decimal 2 places to the right. So my final answer is going to be 7%. All right, here's the third example. This time the decimal place is actually, so the place value we have is in the thousandths instead of the hundredths place. The process doesn't change, kiddos. We're still going to multiply this decimal by 100. So that means the decimal point is going to move 2 places to the right, so in between the 3 and the 6. So our answer is going to look like this, and we're at 43.6%. See, simple enough. So to change decimals into percentages, we're going to multiply the decimal by 100. And what happens? We move the decimal 2 places to the right. I have one more example for you. And here it is. 1.27 or 1 27 hundredths. Does the process change? No, it does not, kiddos. We're still going to multiply this decimal by 100, which means the decimal place is going to move over 2 places to the right. So it's going to go after the 7. So we rewrite our answer. So we're at 127%. Very interesting, very interesting. All right, so that's how we take decimals and change them into percentages.